Bearing false witness, Exodus 20:16, also Deuteronomy 5:20, almost identical, says, "You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor." And this commandment, along with the next or the last commandment, gives laws as to how to live with our neighbors. It is a law. It's not a guideline. That's important to realize. There's no gray area. So if that's the case, that means that we need to know beyond a shadow of a doubt what these words mean. The shall not, that's pretty straightforward. We don't have to discuss that. We're forbidden to do this. But what is false witness, and who is our neighbor? Let's look into that. But before we go there, let's just look at how important this commandment is. Does any of you know where the phrase "an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth" comes from?
Babylon.
Comes from Babylon?
Ancient Babylon. Hammurabi's Code.
Okay. I got a surprise for you. Let's turn to Deuteronomy 19 and look at verses 16 through 19. Deuteronomy 19, that's hard to say, 16 through 19. Here's what it says. "If a false witness rises against any man to testify against him of wrongdoing, then both men in the controversy shall stand before the Lord, before the priest and the judges who serve in those days. And the judges shall make careful inquiry, and indeed if the witness is a false witness who has testified falsely against his brother, then you shall do to him as he thought to have done to his brother. So you shall put away the evil from among you. And those who remain shall hear and fear. And hereafter they shall not again commit such an evil among you. Your eye shall not pity. Life shall be for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, and foot for foot." So, when we look at false witness here, what this is saying is that in the court of law of that day, if someone bears false witness against another person, they would have to pay the consequences as if the false witness was borne against them on equal terms. And again, this is law. There's no room for interpretation. Pretty serious, right? Let's look at another one. Proverbs 6, 16 through 19. "These 6 things the Lord hates, yet 7 are an abomination to him: a proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that are swift in running to evil, a false witness who speaks lies, and one who sows discord among brethren." Now, that's pretty straightforward as well. So, in the eyes of the Lord, bearing false witness is an abomination. That's a pretty strong word, isn't it? Now, getting away from that just a little bit, there's 9 other proverbs that speak directly against being a false witness. In addition, it's the topic of discussion directly in at least 5 different locations in the New Testament. And there are about a half a dozen other places in the New Testament where the principle behind being a false witness is discussed. So it's an important topic. It's extremely important to God, but what does it mean? Well, thought I'd take a little different approach here than I normally do. I went to the internet and I found a couple catechisms. Anybody here from that Catholic that's been through the Catholic catechism? Here's what the Catholic catechism says. This is the Article 8 on the 8th commandment. It says, the 8th commandment forbids misrepresenting the truth in our relations with others. This moral prescription flows from the vocation of the holy people to bear witness to their God, who is the truth and wills the truth. Offenses against the truth expressed by word or deed, a refusal to commit oneself to moral uprightness. They are fundamental infidelities to God, and in this sense they undermine the foundations of the covenant. The covenant being our relationship with Jesus Christ and with the Father. So what the Catholic Catechism says is anytime we bear false witness, we are going against the truth being from God, the only source of truth. Yes?
Excuse me. Brings to mind that Jesus described Satan in the New Testament as the father of lies.
Exactly. Now, I don't know if you picked up on this last statement. It says, referring to misrepresenting the truth, it says they are fundamental infidelities to God, and in this sense they undermine the foundations of the covenant. I mean, you know, what happens when you lie? You tell another lie. You can't trust the person. You know, if God lied to us just one time, how could we believe anything in the Bible? If we bear false witness just one time, how can we have a relationship with another person that's meaningful? Now, okay, that's the Catholics. Let's look at what the Protestants say. And this is from the Large Catechism by Martin Luther, the father of Protestantism. And here's what he says. He says, over and above our own body, spouse, and temporal possessions, we have yet another treasure, namely honor and good report, with which we cannot dispense. For it is intolerable to live among men in open shame and general contempt. Therefore, God wishes the reputation, good name, and upright character of our neighbor to be taken away or diminished as little as his money and possessions, that everyone may stand in his integrity before wife, children, servants, and neighbors. Now listen to this. And in the first place, we take the plainest meaning of this commandment according to the words, thou shalt not bear false witness, as pertaining to the public courts of justice, where a poor, innocent man is accused and oppressed by false witnesses in order to be punished in his body, property, or honor. Deuteronomy. Okay? Let's take this a step further. Therefore, this commandment is given first of all, that everyone shall help his neighbor to secure his rights and not allow them to be hindered or twisted, but shall promote and strictly maintain them, no matter whether he be judge or witness, and let it pertain to whatsoever it will. Next, it extends very much further. If we are to apply it to spiritual jurisdiction or administration, here is a common occurrence that everyone bears false witness against his neighbor. For wherever there are godly preachers and Christians, they must bear the sentence before the world that they are called heretics, apostates, yea, seditious, and desperately wicked miscreants. In the third place, Martin Luther was pretty detailed. He says, in the third place, what concerns us all, this commandment forbids all sins of the tongue whereby we may injure or approach too closely to our neighbor. For to bear false witness is nothing else than a work of the tongue. Now, whatever is done with the tongue against a fellow man, God would have prohibited, whether it be false preachers with their doctrine and blasphemy, false judges and witnesses with their verdict, or outside of the court by lying and evil speaking. Here belongs particularly the detestable, shameful voice of speaking behind a person's back and slandering, to which the devil spurs on us, and of which there would be much to be said. So, if you summarize this, you put it all together, here's what we can say. Bearing false witness is a sin against God as well as a sin against our neighbors, because it's making the truth a very shallow thing, and then it's also something that affects the rights and the honor of those that are around us. It takes away the integrity of those that are around us. But who is our neighbor? The Hebrew word that's used here in you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor means literally associate, or one that is more or less close to you. Now, if you stop to think about that, that would include just about everyone that we come into contact with, wouldn't it? I mean, our families, people at the grocery store, our literal neighbors, our work associates. It would include just about everyone. But Jesus even took this a step further. In Luke 10:30 through 37, and you knew I'd get to this. This is the story of the Good Samaritan. Jesus said, a certain man went down to Jerusalem, to Jericho, and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a certain priest came down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Likewise, a Levite, when he arrived at the place, came and looked, and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine, and he set him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. On the next day, when he departed, he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said to him, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, when I come again, I'll repay you. So which of these 3 do you think was neighbor to him who fell among the thieves? And he said, he who showed mercy on him. And then Jesus said, go and do likewise. This is kind of interesting because in Jesus' teaching here, Jesus made the assumption that we always show mercy on our neighbors.